Welcome, everyone, to American History to 1877. This is Chapter 1, The New World. I'm your guide, your historian, and your teacher. My name is Tyler Rust. I want to talk a little bit about what we'll be learning in Chapter 1. You might want to write these down in your notes, and feel free to pause this presentation at any time so that you can do that. In Chapter 1, we'll be answering the following questions. Who were the first Americans? What was the impact of European expansion? And how did the Spanish conquest of the Americas affect the native peoples? Let's start our exploration by answering the question, who were the first Americans? The first Americans crossed over to North America from Asia on a land bridge. DNA evidence suggests that these nomadic ancestors paused for perhaps 15,000 years en route to North America. Evidence found in modern-day Chile suggests that human activity began in North and South America at least 14,500 years ago. There is similar evidence hinting at human settlement in the Florida Panhandle around the same time. Agriculture arose sometime between 9,000 and 5,000 years ago, almost simultaneously in both the eastern and western hemispheres. Agriculture flourished in the fertile river valleys between the Mississippi River and the Atlantic Ocean, an area known as the Eastern Woodlands. There, three crops in particular, corn, beans, and squash, provided the nutrition necessary to sustain large populations. The growth of agriculture led to larger populations settling in one area, which led to new cities. Examples of these early population centers include the Aztec, Incan, and Pueblo civilizations. Each of these developed advanced religions, architecture, and writing systems. Near what is today St. Louis, Missouri, there is evidence of the Cahokia civilization, whose populations were as large as 30,000 people. The Cahokia civilization was as large as most European cities at the same time. Equally advanced civilizations included the Lenape in the eastern seaboard and the Haidas in northwestern North America. Let's take a minute now to pause the video so that you can write down some of the information that you've heard so far. Let's try practicing some notes. Divide your notepaper into two halves from the top to the bottom. On the left side, I want you to write new information that you gather in this presentation. On the right side, I want you to write down any questions or thoughts that you have about the new information as you take notes. Remember to pause this presentation frequently to write down or re-listen and to gather more information in your notes. Now let's examine the question, what was the impact of European expansion? Now we're going to examine how the arrival of Europeans impacted the peoples of North America. Europeans in the 15th century were obsessed with exploration and expansion. The Renaissance had led to a desire to know more about the world, and the discovery of new lands led to a greater desire for more trade. This is what drove Europeans to seek new routes to Asia. One of those new routes was to the west. It's a common mistake to assume Europeans thought the world was flat. The size and distance of the world kept Europeans from sailing west in search of Asia. Christopher Columbus famously tried to find a western route to Asia. He wasn't the first European to go to the New World, of course. When he arrived in the Caribbean, Columbus encountered the Taino people. Columbus made 4 trips to the New World. Each time he led campaigns that decimated the Taino. Ultimately, the Spanish wanted more gold and more territory, and they exterminated millions of Native Americans in the process. Next, let's explore the question, how did the Spanish conquest affect native peoples? In their quest for gold, the Spanish conquerors exterminated millions of Native American people. Today, there are no Taino left. The Spanish conquest can be remembered in this way. A Spanish soldier was recorded as saying, "We came here to serve God and the king, and also to get rich." The Spanish organized their conquered territory into vast estates called encomiendas. These estates had just one person in charge, and they were served by native labor, controlled by violence. Most famous of all Spanish conquerors was Hernán Cortés, who conquered the Aztec Empire, based in modern-day Mexico. Maybe because the Aztecs thought Cortés was a god, the Spaniards were able to gain native support and capture the Aztec ruler. The Spanish conquered Mexico and Peru and set up a racial system in their new society, placing Europeans at the top and native peoples at the bottom. These racial classes were known as peninsulares, or Spanish. Underneath them, the Creoles, or New World-born Spanish people. Beneath them, mestizos, or mixed Spanish and Native Americans. And then at the bottom were Native Americans. In conclusion, we can say the following about European conquest of the New World. European arrival in the New World devastated American civilizations through violence as well as disease. Spanish conquest unleashed a genocide upon Native Americans, killing upwards of 10 million people. New diseases that were introduced by Europeans added to the destruction. This has been United States History to 1877, Lesson 1, The New World. This has been created with materials provided by open source at the American Yawp of Stanford University, and by me, your guide and historian, Tyler Rust. I hope you liked it and that you'll join us for Lesson 2. You can also gain more information about history at my website, historydojo.blog.